Welcome to episode 9 of the Give Us Time podcast, the podcast that highlights the extraordinary members of our armed forces and their families. Today's guest is an Army veteran who served in the Parachute Regiment. During his time, he was deployed in Afghanistan, and during his second tour, he sustained a serious injury resulting in the loss of his left arm. This injury did not stop him though. After leaving the army, he has gone on to do some truly staggering things and has become a true adventurer. He's trekked unsupported to the North Pole. He's climbed Everest, only being stopped from the summit by awful weather. And he's been a member of the GB paracycling team. And these are only a few things that he's done. So we are pleased to welcome Jaco Van Gass. Jaco, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey guys, how are you? Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
And of course, joining me today is our ambassador, Scotty Derrick.
Hi. And yeah, it's good to see Jaco's mug again. Obviously, we were in the Invictus Games 2016. So it was, Jaco did all the recycling and lycra stuff. I did all the heavy lifting and throwing things.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was all about Jaco. You know, he's looking good, tanned and everything.
You don't sound too bitter, Scotty. You only sound a little bit bitter.
Not at all. I did all the hard stuff.
All right. So, Jaco, you were born in South Africa. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What that was like growing up in?
Yeah, of course. So, obviously, originally South African born. I do look back, and I'm very fortunate in that sense because I can't really complain about my upbringing. I had a very great upbringing, very loving parents. My grandparents had a family farm. So I spent most of my time, obviously, in town, in city, and going to school there. And most weekends or majority of holidays, I would be with my grandparents on the farm. So very outdoorsy, running around, shooting air rifles, herding cattle, learning to drive from the age of 10, just that typical outdoor life. So, really nothing to complain about in that sense. And yeah, I loved every second of it. We then kind of moved on from, where do we go? Like I say, it's just, it was a wonderful lifestyle. And in the sun, my first passion was rugby. I've always played rugby to, what I thought was a very high standard. It's a big thing in South Africa to play for, your school, whether it's your primary school, whether it's the high school you go to or the college, to play for their first team. And I actually suffered a really, really bad knee injury during a rugby match where a guy tackled me from the side, and I actually broke my knee extremely badly, having then to get plates and screws into the knee to keep it. And that took me out for quite a significant amount of time, actually. I actually missed a full season, the next season. This was midway of one season. Was, I think I was about 15 or 16 at this stage.
Yeah.
And that's really where I've always had a passion for cycling to some degree, but this is where the bike really came in because I found it as a great form of escapism and also as another tool of rehabilitation. And whilst all my mates were constantly going away every weekend playing, some of the most prestigious high schools in the country, I was stuck at home and I had to find a way to keep myself busy. Yeah. But I obviously longing to get back to a rugby field. I worked towards that, and eventually I did. I played for my school's first team. The great honours that brings with it, and we did really well, and finishing on top of the league and winning trophies and stuff. So that was always, a good thing for me. I then after school, left school. I didn't go down the university route. We had a very small family business, and I started working with my dad. And my dad's very traditional. Gave me all the crappy jobs. There is, you're starting at the bottom, you work your way up. My dad was.
What did your father do, Jaco?
Well, like I said, my dad was a bit of an entrepreneur, and we had a number of small businesses. One of them was actually distribution of leaflets. We had a contract. So let's say like Tesco has a Easter special, and then we had a workforce underneath us that will walk the streets and put it in your post box. And stuff like that. From that to newspapers and all that kind of stuff. We sold firelighters and wood and briquettes, especially South Africa, big braai, barbecue community. We did that. We had a few other smaller contracts as well. So a number of little things within one company. So just learning all my dad's trades and all these contacts and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it. But there was always something underlined for me. I was always burning for something more. And I think I craved independence. And I realized that basically, if I wanted my own flat and I wanted to live on my own and start being this independent individual, it's going to take a long time, because at this time, with, again, my dad, the small salary I received, he made me paint. We had a warehouse. So I literally, day one, week one, he handed me a paintbrush and I'm like, what's this? He's like, well, this place needs a paint, and this is your job. And for the first month, I was painting this horrific warehouse, and he always found something to do on the smaller scale side, and then kind of grew, worked myself up within the business. But my point was that I craved this independence, and I realized that actually it's going to be years staying with my parents until I get there, and I don't know why I didn't like that idea. So I started looking into other ways and forms, and then having always had a passion for the army, I heard that because we're part of the Commonwealth, I can actually join the British military, and that's how I then started looking into those routes, and basically led to my life in the UK.
How old were you then when you went and landed in the UK and joined and because you joined the Paras? But how old were you when? Because that must have been a massive culture shock, going from lovely sunny South Africa to rainy, damp.
So it was. I was age 20, to answer your question. So I was age 20, and I was very lucky in a sense, because I came when I first made the move. So bags packed on a plane. I landed in June in 2000, and gosh, it must have been 2006 if I remember correctly, 6 or 7, and I was very fortunate as well that my sister at this stage was already established in London. She's a couple of years older than me. She's lived in London for a few years as well. So there was that friendly face on the other side of the border gates, so which was amazing. And she was a great help as well, helping me settle in. But yes, the first initial kind of tests and bar tests and all that kind of stuff was all in Aldershot. So I had to get a train there, get all the initial tests done, make sure I run, the time within. It's funny enough, my fiance Catherine has actually just looked it up. I don't know why, we had this discussion the other day, and it was again about what it takes to get into the army or some of the other services, and what you have to run a 2-miler in, and push-ups and stuff like that. And then you go on to what the Parachute Regiment requirements are, and the run's a great deal faster. You've got quite a bit less time to actually compete it in. So I think she's actually set herself a goal to try and see if she can potentially make the time cut in this year sometime. So yeah. But my point was that yes, it was already on a slightly different, higher scale. But it's actually quite a little romantic story, because myself and one of my best friends decided to come over to the UK and join the army. We knew, literally, we got on the plane knowing we're joining the army. Which part of the army, we had absolutely no idea. I didn't even knew about the Parachute Regiment, honestly. And we landed a Saturday, sometime in June. We landed a Saturday, and the Monday morning, I was in Trafalgar Square at the careers office, and myself and Ian, my best friend, and we sat there, and there was this rifles officer. We walked in, saw the two, fresh-blooded South Africans come in, and, the strongest accents you can ever, I was barely speaking English at that stage. and yeah, so he explained everything to us, how it works, and obviously trying to recruit us for the rifles. And literally minutes before we walked out of the door, a Parachute Regiment officer came down the stairs.
And he couldn't speak either.
And he couldn't speak much either as well.
I've got a place for you, son.
There was exactly, and there was that immediate connection between. He sounds a bit daft, but in any way, he just said, two South African boys, what do you want to join? And we're like, well, we don't really know. And he just said, listen, most of you guys are, and it was true, you're fit, you're strong. We come from a background where we've handled weapons. Again, as a kid, we used to shoot air rifles on the farm all the time and handguns and blah, blah, blah. It's like usually you're good marksmanship principles and all that kind of stuff. A lot of your boys, i.e. South Africans, they joined the Parachute Regiment. So and he literally just gave me a leaflet, didn't try to sell it at all. He's just like, just go and have a look at this. So we walked out, when we got home, on Google and, read all about the Parachute Regiment. And I said to my mate, this is the one I want to join. I don't know what you want to join, but I know this is the one because it just stood out. And like I say, as the rest is history. It went back and said, this is what I want to do. They then obviously gave me all the guidelines of how to get in. And I trained towards that. And eventually made it to we then move up to Gatwick Garrison, up in the north. So,
I want to know now, how hard was it? I'm imagining it's incredibly hard. I'm imagining it pushed you quite far.
Yeah, so to be very honest, that was very hard because obviously, as you can imagine as well. So this whole process of actually purely getting into the army actually took some time. So in the meantime, we worked and stayed in London and supported ourselves. So like I said, this was early June. It wasn't until the January of the next year, so the January 2007, that I actually started my basic training. And as I see your face, Scotty, so I went into a winter training into Gatwick Garrison. Oh. So a young South African, freshly off the plane, going up north, I was absolutely pissed. I remember days where we would go for a run and we will have either the 4-tonner or one of the Jeeps, the Land Cruisers, in front of us, breaking ice. Like you would run and there's little puddles or, deeper sections, and they would drive through it to break the ice so that we can run through it. And I was, Army talk, I was in clip. I was in clip 24/7 and on exercises. I couldn't even, I remember one day on an exercise, my hands were that cold. We were an early morning attack and the corporal was standing behind me and he was kicking me in the head going, fire your rifle, Van Gass, fire your rifle. And I'm like, Corporal, I can't. I couldn't get my safety catch off. My hands was that cold that I couldn't get my safety catch off to fire my rifle. And in the meantime, I'm getting kicked in the head by the corporal, going, why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? Because I couldn't. So great memories through my basic training. Yeah, really good. But we made it. Yeah. We made it. I think out of especially basic training, it's where they really, you look back on it now and you think, actually, it was fun to some degree. And you look back on it now and I laugh about it so much, especially little incidents like that. But oh my word, when you're in it, you're thinking this is the worst place ever. And there's multiple times I thought, if this is what the army's about, I made a really bad choice. I really made a bad decision here. So, but once you get through basic training, it's a total different life.
That must have been an amazing feeling once you passed and once you got that hat. You must have been absolutely buzzing.
Don't call it a hat, Alex.
On the hat topic, there you go. On the hat topic, it's not a hat. It's the rest of the army wear hats. The Parachute Regiment, we wear berets. We wear maroon berets.
Sorry guys. Sorry to everyone listening there. I've made a massive faux pas. And so what was it like getting this maroon beret? Sorry.
That sounds better. So now I can answer your question. It really was. It was a true. It was one of those moments that will forever, ever sit in your memory, and it's one of the best memories. And I'll be honest, I had a very tough time through my basic training. I was set back with a very bad groin injury, which took significant time to heal. So it meant I didn't pass out with my original platoon that I started. So I had to go on to a rehabilitation unit for a number of times, and then what's the word again, Scott? You got kind of put back?
Oh, it's just back squatted.
Back squatted, that's the word. So I actually had to get back squatted due to injury. So I kind of had to start new relationships with a new group of people at a different stage of their training. So I had to kind of almost do a little bit of the training again just to build my fitness back up. So for me, that was a big setback. But again, it's actually that second group I actually made better friends. And obviously we then went on to battalion with those guys. So once I did stand on that, that pass-off parade and receiving my maroon beret was truly a wonderful feeling. Like I say, having it taking a little bit longer than planned or expected, but it just made it even more worthwhile, and the significance of the Parachute Regiment and what we stand for even more so.
Oh, amazing!
The thing, Alex, it's when Jaco was doing his training, he also wore a bit of like it's just like a beanie or something during training. And then if some of these training instructors would see guys like myself in a corps, we were called hats, or crap hats was the word, to be honest.
That's more specific, correct, crap hats.
Thank you very much. But needless to say, it was us guys that used to bring all this stuff for them to the front. So it wasn't for us. They wouldn't get their gloves and their socks and everything else. So other than that, it was good. But yeah, guys, it's fantastic. I've worked with a few paras in the close protection circuit afterwards. Great lads. Learned so much from them. Yeah, I'm sure that was a great day as well to let your family know back in South Africa. Did they come over for the passing out parade, Jaco?
Yeah, so that was one of those amazing experiences that my mum, she came over, and like I said, my sister lived in the UK at the time as well. So to have them there was such a special moment to share, and to see the joy on their faces that I have, because obviously they've been there the whole journey along the way. Yes, communication, as a boy or as a son or as a man, we are bad at that. I loved, my parents will not hear from me for months, but they just knew that I was all right, and I'll touch the old base with my sister when I needed her, I've got a weekend off, can I stay with you in your flat in London? Suddenly I know her. But I always knew that their support and their love for me was always there. And to share that moment, was, it was amazing. It really was good.
Oh, brilliant. So moving forward then, your first deployment, so that was then to Afghanistan. Was that in 2008 then, if you passed in 2007? Am I right?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So as you say, so I passed out about, again, the summer of 2007. So I was still, a young private, a young Tom that we call in the army. I was a very young Tom. And
egg.
And egg, yeah.
Frog.
Exactly. So it just so happened. So I then went on to join SFSG, so One Para Special Forces Support Group, and we were already allocated a space within B Company. But at that very moment in time, B Company was in Afghanistan as it stood on their rotation. So we were this was an opportunity for us to then just get all sorts of qualifications, because again, within the SFSG, we use slightly different radio systems, we use slightly different weapon systems, and again, it was a great opportunity to get qualified on all these new kind of systems that we're going to be on, heavy weapons, driver's license, all that kind of stuff. And by the time we get in, we kind of just roll in and we can just play our role within a company. And that's exactly what happened. So we were kind of under the hat of a company to do all this. And then once they rolled back in, we just slotted straight into B Company. Yeah. And it was about 5, 6, 7 months in. I was actually we were on a different rotation. And I was down in Portsmouth, actually, on a course. And my sergeant called me up going, Van Gass, there's a car waiting outside. You're getting escorted back to the barracks. You're going to Afghan. And I'm like, what you're on about? So basically, my old boss, actually from depot, got called up to fill in for another officer. Yeah. And there was an opportunity, a training opportunity. It was to go out on both operations and training missions. So training the Afghan soldiers or army. So it's a combined kind of operation. And one of the blokes had a few personal problems at home, and he's requested to not go. And because my boss knew me, clearly impressed him during my time within in depot, requested that I go with him on the tour. So it was a great opportunity at a very young age, or within my soldier's career, to go to Afghanistan to do that. And I had to step up to the game. I had to step up to the plate I've only, 6 months ago, I've just came out of my basic training. Now I'm training other, soldiers. So I had to step up as a lance corporal to a degree in that role, an acting role. And again, on operations as well, I just had to be on top of it. So I came away from that tour, with a great deal more experience than anyone else, learned myself, grew within myself, and I loved the experience. So that, like I say, that took me through the second tour quite swiftly, loved every bit of it. We then went on to our normal rotation. I shifted back into, because this was for another company, I shifted back into B company. Yeah. And it just so happens that actually, 5 months after returning from Afghan, I was now back on my second tour, the beginning of 2009. For me, this was heaven. We just, as Scotty will know, once you're out there, you just kind of, you want to, they played a different role. Scotty, you guys will be on 2-3 year rotations and stuff like that. Quite big
something
gaps.
like that. Yeah. I knew the guys that were out there in the combat logistics patrols and stuff, going out there, and they were getting quite battered every couple of years, really.
That's it.
To get back out there, but it was pretty tough on the all rotations. But as you were saying, a young guy cutting his teeth, that's what you really wanted. You wanted to put your training into practice. Like for me, when I joined up in '95, Northern Ireland was the place to go and get your boots on the ground, and that's what it was. And again, for yous, right, that conflict or war was Afghanistan, and as being trained as a fighting machine or a unit with the
Well, that's the thing. We did all my staff through training. All my staff through depot. They were guys from 2 and 3 para. They have just returned from Afghanistan. Let's say anything between 6 and 8 months ago. They have first-hand experience. Yes. Basically, what the British Army had to do was take the training booklet and rip it in half and rewrite it all, because it was all conventional fighting. It was all, like you say, Northern Ireland. It wasn't desert oriented. It wasn't Afghan orientated. It wasn't what we're facing now orientated. And what those staff members brought to the table was, I've just been there. This is how we have to train to go out there. This is what you're going to be facing. And because of that, and the stories these guys were telling, like Scotty said, we were burning to get out there. We did everything we can to get out to Afghanistan, because this is what we trained for. Yeah. And then, like you say, to have that first opportunity was absolutely amazing. And before I knew it, I was already on my second tour, and already, quite ahead above the rest of my, the guys that actually came with me, because I kind of come with experience to a degree, and having been in that environment already. So the second time around was a lot easier. And the second time around was on a full operation, full scale, military operation. So no training involved whatsoever. It was purely just there to do the job that we do with SFSG.
Yeah. So,
and was that the time, Jaco, if you don't mind me jumping in, you were out there, I read in some of your bio, you were in a big long humdinger of a firefight just prior to getting injured. Do you mind just chatting about that?
Yeah, no problem at all. But exactly that. So, we saw a great deal of action over that summer. From the word go, literally, what I loved about obviously there's certain aspects we can't go too deep into because of the role that I played, but it was the variety of roles that I played with this unit and the support that we do give out there, and that's what I loved. My role changed almost on every operation, and some guys might find it difficult. I actually thrived on it because I saw it as skill building. I saw it like, one day you're a machine gunner, the other day you're a section commander, the next day you're literally a security for the head shed, or you're transporting a high value target, or whatever it might be. It literally was as it comes. Stuff with helicopters, stuff in. On vehicle, stuff on foot. It was amazing, and I loved every bit of it.
Wow!
But by the time
you're doing everything, you're literally doing everything. It's literally
exactly
it. That sounds. It sounds like you loved it as well.
Absolutely. It's like having that role. You're going out to do a job, and what we used to say was as well, like as Jaco said, people get injured, people get hurt. You've got to step up to that person's shoes to get in and do that role. So it was like for us, we were going right. We need a signaller. You were putting that disc in your head. Yeah. You're now a signaller today. Again, you were doing that. You were doing everything. So as a young Tom or a young Lance Jack, half in charge of a section, you're there with your guys. You have got to know everybody's role. So that's why the good guys get out in these jobs, because there's, you can't really make mistakes. You've got to get out there and do whatever's needed, and that's where the training comes in.
Exactly.
Train. And as you were saying, that the other guys from the different companies were coming back, and they were bringing that continuity and realism to your new training. As you were saying, that rule book, chuck it in the bin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were coming and saying, right, that works out there. For that weapon system, don't use that oil. Use this one. Use that. Do that. And you're going, perfect.
Exactly. And especially, as you would know as well, once... the first couple of months is fine in terms of, manpower and stuff like that. But again, we're stepping up to different roles and different tasks. It's especially once the R&R rotations start kicking in. This is when you start giving the guys their relief, the 2 weeks out of country to come back to their families. Now you're losing 2, 3, 4 members of your section, that's away. So again, having to step up, like you say, if the signaller is on his R&R, someone needs to be able to carry the kit, operate it fully, functionally, and make sure that it works on the ground. And again, whether you're a minigunner or whatever role there is. So once that R&R rotation kicks in, that's when it really kind of steps in, because you're already 3, 4 people down within your unit on a regular basis after that, then for the rest of the tour. So, but kind of moving forward, basically, so this was our kind of the continuous of our 5.5 months out there, and I think this is the big thing, is that I had a mere 2 weeks left. Literally, I had 2 weeks left in theatre. Yeah. Before coming back home. So, I made it really easy for the boys, because most of my stuff was already packed. Most of the stuff was already, I got injured, and it was like, okay, just sort a little bit of paperwork. He's done the rest. So, the guys didn't have to pack my bags. They didn't have to pack my, my bunk bed up and all that kind of stuff. Most of it was done. I literally had like 1 or 2 sets of first kit, some operational kit, and then just some stuff that we use as well on top of the normal circumstances. I had a few bits out. The rest was all kind of packed and ready to go to get shipped back to the UK. But yeah, and it basically led to this, this operation. And anyway, it was late August. Well, to be honest, it was the evening of the 19th of August, so the night before my birthday, and we operate mostly at the hours of darkness, and this operation came in. We were after this guy for a very long time. He was a IED facilitator, so he was making IEDs and suicide vests, and it was also during the time of the Afghan presidential elections. So this was a crucial time, because for many years, obviously, we've worked alongside the Afghanistan government in many various ways to get a free and fair election, within their country and stuff like that. So these guys, we got great intel. These guys were planning to bomb some of the, to use suicide bombers to go and disrupt some of the voting stations within certain areas. And the intel was strong. And we lifted off that night rather late, landed basically almost on his roof. We did what we needed to do. And we caught him, and it was solid. This guy, we were after him for a very long time. We extracted a great deal of IED facilitating stuff. Again, we found the suicide base. We even found the guys, the young boys, the young men that they were going to use as suicide bombers. We managed to get them. So in terms of the actual operation, it was extremely successful.
Yeah.
And then it was once we moved from the target back out to the desert to get picked up by the helicopters to get flown out back to camp, back to safety. And it was about half an hour, 40 minutes into the walk. We usually make sure that we have a good, a fair distance away from any village or any form of settlement, because the helicopters, UK helicopters, are so they are worth gold. We only have a number of lifters. We're not anywhere near the scale of the US Army or US Marines or whatever it might be. These guys, I think there's the US Marine Corps in itself, which is actually quite a small part of the whole US Army. The US Marine Corps itself is bigger than the Army, Navy and Air Force of of Britain put together.
Crazy.
My point is that we couldn't lose a helicopter, so we always made sure that we're far into the desert and it's safe for them to land, pick us up, and go again.
Yeah.
And it's on the way to this pickup point. The call came over saying that for some reason they weren't actually happy with the landing site. They gave us coordinates for a new one, so we had to move off a proven route, which we knew was clear, was safe, secure, onto a new one. And this is where the trouble started, because obviously cover of darkness. So by this stage, it was at 2:00 in the morning. It's my birthday. I'm happy. I'm going, 20th of August. Here we go. And yeah, we spotted some movement on the high ground, and a couple of guys in a patrolling formation. Couldn't identify weapons. We all went firm. That evening as well, we worked quite closely with some of the Afghan forces, Afghan guys. And as they speak the language, we said to them, hey, you go forward, tell these guys we're in the area, conduct some searches, and we'll move on.
Yeah.
They did so, and as they approached them, they shouted out a number of verbal commands.
Yeah.
They didn't react to it, and then one of them just opened up with a spray of AK-47.
Oh my God!
In our general direction. So this initiated. Obviously, we had them lasered, we had them tagged. So we dropped these guys very quickly.
Yeah.
But what then became apparent was that we were taking on a much larger force than just these few guys, because there was a number of muzzle flashes, or fire getting returned our way from different locations. And suddenly we recognized that we're taking on a bit of a hornet's nest here, with loads of muzzle flashes appearing from different areas.
Yeah.
We had the gunship above us, the eye in the sky.
Yeah.
Confirming as well, they were actually trying to flank us. They were trying to do a left flank on us as well, which brought them, beautifully, nicely into our fire. Actually not mine, but me and my team's arc of fire. So we saw them coming. We dealt with these guys, but I was very close. And I think again, you can stipulate all of how did it happen that night. But the one big thing that I think that stood out, I had an Afghan machine gunner very close to me, and obviously he was firing, and this machine gun spits a big flame. Yeah. So I think he was the target in a sense. Yeah. So so basically 2 RPGs was fired, kind of his way. The one came over our heads and exploded in the distance. Totally, missed us. They're quite inaccurate things to fire, and the second one was fired, but this one was low, and this one was bouncing and ricocheting off the ground, so kind of heading one direction 1 second and then another the other. But that's exactly what happened. So it was bouncing and ricocheting, constantly changing direction. And in the side of my night vision goggles, at this time I was giving covering fire to my sniper partner, because I was attached to a sniper that night. So it was my job to be his sharpshooter and to carry the ladders and support him in his role, which I loved. And luckily, we were making turns carrying these telescopic ladders, because they're bloody heavy. And the whole night we were making turns carrying them. And for some reason, it's a one time I'm actually really, really grateful I have been carrying them, or it was my turn, because that's what saved my life that night. Because I was down on one knee, giving covering fire to him. He was putting on a new magazine, and then this RPG I can see in the side of my night vision goggles was kind of heading my way, and I was like, "Whoa, this is going to be close." And in a split second's reaction, I twisted my head away and I turned my back to this oncoming rocket. And that very second I did that, the rocket clipped or hit the ladders, and then ricocheted off the ladders, and then, well, exploded. But most of the blast was kind of veered away by that, and then obviously ripped the arm off and part of my leg. But it could have been so much worse if you think about it. I would have taken a full hit by an RPG in the ribs, and just because of my action, that last split second, and the material that kind of the ladder taking most of the impact. The blast flew. It blew me about, I think it was a good 5-6 meters away from my original position. Like flung in the air and down to the ground again. But that's when I think during that time I lost a couple of seconds of consciousness, and landing and getting back to what happened. I was so confused because I'm on my back. I was firing my weapon a couple of seconds ago. I can hear the guy still firing in the background. Yeah. Why am I lying on my back? And I can see like bits burning all around me, and just the confusion was horrific. And then suddenly I was like, well, I need to get back into this firefight. And I was still laying on my back, and I was trying to hold my rifle to kind of sit back up, when my rifle just kind of fell to the ground, or I couldn't hold it correctly. And it's then when I look down and I see, wow, I've lost my left arm. And that's when it really, really sunk in, like, okay, this is bad. I then tried to apply a tourniquet, but the shock, I was shaking, and I was like, I knew I had to do it, but I couldn't do it tight enough.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't even sure if I was doing it right, but luckily one of my friends, a young soldier called Reese, realized I was out of my position. He kind of came crawling over, saw where I was, and started helping with the tourniquet, and then radioed in, because my radio was then obviously completely destroyed. It was the side that I carried my radio on as well. Big ammo pouches was gone and all kinds of stuff. So he then radioed in, and I very soon received medical care from the medic on the ground to, life-saving medical care that evening. And it's amazing. We train for these situations, and I always make sure that I pay attention, that if something like this happened to a friend, I'll be able to save his life. And suddenly I'm the guy there on the floor going, I really hope you paid attention during the medical classes, because I really need it. But no, the guys did a great job. And, there's a number of times, they truly, truly stepped up to the mark, because we actually had to bring in air support as well. And, it's still this day that it's, I think, recorded the closest it's been to, it's nearly a blue on blue. The JTAC that night was phenomenal by doing that. We actually had.
How close were you, Jaco, when they danger close, or was it?
Add one more danger, mate. Yeah, danger close. Yeah. So, I could feel the thumps of the air support going in. The guys had to lay over me, and then, ground and shrapnel was falling over us, literally, like,
oh my God,
they look like covering us. It is like, a movie. You can't write these things. There's times where they literally like stop treating me. They lay over me, covering me, and I can feel the dust kind of falling on top of us. And then they go back and then keep doing their job. Yeah. So it's amazing. So, I literally have my life to thank for those guys. But like I say, we then tried to get helicopters in. It was quite a struggle, because we were in such a severe firefight at that time. Again, like I said, the British helicopters, they just said, no, we're not coming in until this is neutralized. We're not. We can't be risked getting shot down. Luckily, again, we we calmed the situation down after a little while, and then there was another call sign called a flipper call sign, which is an American helicopter group, and they were like not far away from us, and they're like, you know what, we'll come in. And 3 Chinooks came flying in. And I remember as well, I was in and out of consciousness all night then. But the one thing I do remember that night is actually that sound of a Chinook. It's like, again, it's something out of a Steven Seagal movie or something like that. It's just like, I can hear the cavalry, I can hear this is Savior coming over the hill. And that Chinook, that sound. And then I remember just the flame, from the side door, from the minigun, as it's, like, seeing anything move, just that sound of the minigun, firing over my head, and then the helicopter basically landed. I would say probably like 15 feet away from us, like nearly on top of us. They're just like, just get him in and let's go. And it was literally like, get guys loaded and get out of there. So basically I was then treated by a doctor on board, and then I think there was something significant about being on that helicopter, that because on the ground I was constantly like, I need to work with my boys. I need to work on like staying awake, listen to every single word the medic was saying, do this, all the reactions, staying with them. And there was a relief that we're out of there. And it was like a moment that I just realized, actually, I can relax now. And the moment I relaxed, I lost consciousness, and that was it. I woke up 6 days later, in Seljuk Hospital.
Oh wow, that was incredible. I mean, that sounds terrifying, and like you said, almost like a movie. I'm really like, for something like that to happen. It's also amazing, like all your training just kicked in, and everything that you trained and worked for, had all kind of saved your life really, and everything that went on. So
exactly, yeah.
So moving on from that, which is just, I mean, incredible and crazy. So you woke up 6 days later. I'm assuming your family then around with you then, or because I'm assuming they must have been informed and flown out to go and see you.
Yeah, they were. So that was part of it as well. So as I said, 6 days later, I woke up out of an induced coma. Seeing my family's faces around me, seeing some of my friends, bloody hell, I was confused because my and obviously in the meantime, with all the drugs and all the everything that's getting pumped into me, your mind, it's like I don't know, it's almost like putting a screensaver on a TV, but with a war movie still running in the background. That's how my mind was. Like, obviously it's blank, but it was all the fire, all the gunfire, all the action, everything was still going on, because that was the last kind of action, still going on. So I was literally still convinced I was in Afghanistan. Yeah. Suddenly, and my last clear memory was actually being in a firefight. So suddenly I wake up and I see my mom and my dad and my sister and a few friends, and I'm like, no, you can't be here. You can't be in Afghanistan. I knew I was injured. I can remember looking at the arm, realizing, oh, okay, that's bad. But I was just like, no chance. These people are in Afghanistan. And they were like, no, Jaco, you're in Seljuk, you're in Birmingham, you're okay. And I was like, I don't know where Birmingham is. I don't know where Seljuk is. Like, it's not on the map in Afghanistan. And they're like, but you're not in Afghanistan. I was like, it doesn't matter. I literally had to get wheeled from my intensive care unit to a window just for my brain to actually look outside, to see other buildings, see cars, see green trees, see British, to see, okay, I am not in an Afghan environment. And I did think, I went, great. Well, I've gone from Afghanistan to Seljuk.
That sounds terrifying, not being able to know where you are. And that sounds really confusing.
Absolutely. It's just like, I was absolutely terrified because, like I say, we don't know where you are in the world. It was horrible. And when you know where you were last, it's not a nice place. And the last thing you want is the people closest to you to be in a place like that. So it was, like I say, I didn't stop until they proven to me that I'm actually back in the UK. And that was a difficult thing as well, because this was the first time I could reflect on what happened to me, because I knew I lost my arm. There was like that click was there. I saw that night, this is why I was injured, but I did not know. I had not a clue of the severity of that night, of the injuries I sustained, because I had a collapsed left lung, on top of, so I had first injury I sustained is the amputation of my left arm just above the elbow. I had a collapsed left lung. I had shrapnel wounds to my left side, which punctured some of my internal organs, which ripped my stomach apart. So I had to have a colostomy. I've never heard of a colostomy. I don't know what it looks like. And then I looked down, I'm going, what's this thing sticking out of the bottom of my tummy? I've lost a third of muscle and tissue on my left upper thigh. So again, I looked down and my whole leg is in bandages and in like a splint and all kinds of stuff. I fractured my knee, I fractured my ankle, and I had the fasciotomy on both sides of my left calf. So I looked down going, whoa, what is all this? And this is the first time, I realized that, this is actually career, ending injuries, not even changing, career ending, especially within the military. So that was a bitter pill to swallow, because there was times in my head when I was like, you know what, I know there's amazing prosthetics out in the world, and I'll get something that's going to fit my arm, that's going to hold a rifle, and I'll be out in Afghanistan in 6 months' time. Done. That was literally my thought process. And then eventually, when I realized the severity of my injuries, that was not going to be, and that was a very, very difficult thing to deal with.
It seems like you, like I said on my intro, you. I'm not too sure what the time period was, but it seems like you had a thought process of, I'm not going to let this stop me and define me. Even how long was it from, I don't know how to phrase this now, but how long was it from this recovery to then deciding to, get back out and start doing stuff? Was it a couple years? Was it 12 months?
Yeah, it was still quite a significant time, but I think I understand what you're trying to get to, and I understand it, and I'll answer the question in that sense. So it took me about 2.5 months in terms of this battle I had with myself, and the battle I had was that my mind, my head was like, I'm still in the army. I'm still going to be a soldier. I'm going to go out to Afghanistan on my 3rd tour, on a 4th tour. I'm going to have a full career. And my body was going, no, mate, look at me. We are battered up. We need to chill out. So there was this clash between my mind and my body, And it was almost like my body was like spiting my mind. I was getting one infection after the other. I was getting ill. I was, just my recovery was very, very slow. And again, that was frustrating. And it's not until I had another big setback. Because I think, again, the first thing, once you go on, there's like a stepping stone you follow. It's point of injury. Okay, how do we deal with this? You're in Seljuk Hospital. What does that look like? And then any continuous operations or care or anything you look after. The next step, in terms of your recovery, is getting out of Seljuk, is to get out of, I think it was S5, ward S5, or is getting out of Seljuk. Is Headley Court. Headley Court was this amazing, they read to you about it, they present it to you when you're there, this is where it literally sounds like heaven. Like, this is your, this is where you're going to go, and you're going to learn to walk, you're going to learn to run, you're going to learn to do all your prosthetic stuff, or whatever the injuries you sustained. So Headley Court was always the next big step in your recovery phase. So that's what you're working hard in Seljuk to then get to Headley Court, to then work hard, to then follow the next step on from there, blah, 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 blah. So I actually eventually got to Headley Court after 2.5 months. And I was only there for a week when I had to be sent back to Seljuk, because I've got an infectious virus or something like that kind of crept up on me somewhere. And this setback really, and I mean, when I mean a setback, this was really physically and emotionally, it destroyed me. And I actually cried one night. I laid in my hospital bed and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. And, all these horrible feelings of why am I here? Why did I survive? Why all this kind of came over me? But also in that very moment, the biggest light of them all shone. And I was like, actually, I made peace that night that actually I realized that, you know what, I'm not a soldier anymore. And maybe my time within the army is done now. But if I can't be a soldier, what can I be? What other challenges there is out there that I can be. Let's go and find stuff out that I can do and what I can't do. And I know I'll face many failures along the way, but let's go and figure out how this new Jaco how it works, how his life with one arm and half a leg missing and blah, 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 blah. But that night, the point I'm making is that night, my body and my mind synced. They were on the same page that, you know what, there is an element of recovery. There is a time scale we're going to go through. We need to do this together. And since then, and it's almost then as if someone pressed a fast forward button on my life since then, because then I saw significant improvements in my rehabilitation, my recovery, and then the challenges along the way. So that was about 2.5 months before that realization. And then I think it was another 7 months of really hard work before I was, I could say probably, back to some form of normality or independence, not requiring someone to help me feed or get dressed or move about and all that kind of stuff. Touching on a year of rehab.
So I'm assuming, did your parents have to then go back to South Africa, or did they just, how long were they in the UK? Because, I mean, when we spoke to, obviously, Josh and David, obviously their parents lived in the UK, but obviously yours live in South Africa. Did they try and stay with you for as long as possible throughout this process? Or, or did they, jump to and fro?
Yeah, it's a great question. And on that, I think the first thing I need to say, and I need to elaborate on, is that, the system that the army had in place then, and I'm pretty sure other people might have different opinions on it. And obviously, again, like anything else, they had to learn and adapt massively along the way. But the system they had in place over the time I got injured back in 2009 was flawless. When I got injured and they've notified my parents, within 24 hours of my injury, my parents had a visa, my parents had a plane ticket booked, and they were on a flight. When they landed at Heathrow, they were prioritized on the plane to get off the plane first. They were taking a special route, through customs and stuff like that. Parachute Regiment officer was waiting for them in a car to literally drive them straight. There was no time wasted. It was not like, there was literally like, this guy, his parents is here, they need to, accommodation was sorted, food, parcels were sorted or tokens. They were very well looked after, and I would always thank the Army Welfare for what they've done. It was unbelievable what they've done.
That's
but
incredible.
In terms of answering your question is yes. So my a little bit unbeknown to me as well. So during that time, and again, you look back on it now, you understand. My parents actually went through divorce or split up, not the actual divorce, but kind of separated during my time in Afghanistan. They obviously didn't want to make me aware of this because of the nature of my job and the area that I was in. So, but the point is that yes, they came over together, and my dad actually went. He was there for about 2 weeks. My mom stayed on for about a month and a half, which is amazing. And again, all cared for, all looked after, all sorted. But yes, her time actually did. There was a time when she actually had to go back. And there was actually only one more occasion that she came in, and it was not till much later on. I was much further down my rehabilitation kind of road and at Headley Court as well. But yeah, there is only a time limit on that. But yeah, so very difficult, very hard, like you say, when your parents aren't from here, or or around the corner and stuff like that. So it was very hard on my mom, especially, but on my parents to eventually leave, and they kind of leave me to kind of just carry on with life here on this recovery journey.
Oh, brilliant. That's amazing that the military went and did that for you guys. The welfare officers there have just gone absolute above and beyond. I mean, that sounds absolutely incredible that they went and did all of that.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
so this mindset has changed. You flicked a switch. I mean, I've read all your achievements, which are just incredible, and some I couldn't believe how like what made you then go, you know what I'm going to do now? I mean, I've been in an induced coma for 6 days. You know, I've lost my arm. I'm going to go to the North Pole. Where what was did a part of you? I mean, what did your parents say first of all when they heard you were going to go unsupported and with a team to the North Pole? I'm assuming they were pretty much like, what about you go to a library?
Yeah, there's an element, they are, very caring and obviously always worried, and especially being on the other side of the pond and stuff. So even during my army career, I have adopted the philosophy that what my parents don't know won't kill them. So there was always like a need to know basis, if that makes sense. So they only found out a lot of my mischievous or I don't even know, what's the word, activities from all around the world much later on, or like I say, once the moment has passed and there's no more time to worry. And it worked the same, especially with the North Pole and even more so with Everest. I would kind of say to my sister, she was always being my kind of form of contact within the family, and I would go, I'm doing this. So I don't know how you're going to do it, but just keep mom off my case for, a month or 2 months, and just saying he is somewhere, he's got no signal, he is okay. I have spoken to him. So.
Jaco, that's absolutely amazing. Just listening to your story there about Selly and the guys, it's nice to see that the system does work. To get absolutely put all the dominoes in a row and get things to get your parents to see the loved one. I think that's fantastic. Now you're chatting there. Alex was mentioning about the North Pole, and like I've said on this podcast many a times, Prince Harry is an absolute trooper for what he's done. Not just the time in his military, but for helping wounded, injured, and sick guys. And for my case, guys, we have had mental traumas, and even though guys that have had severe injuries like yourself, the mental trauma must be absolutely, you're fighting with yourself, especially at a level of being a para. For being at a fight, and that's your job, to go on operations to sort things out, and then have that ability not to actually do that. So it's a double barrel question, really. What you think about, obviously, Harry, fantastic. The stuff he did, walking with the wounded, and going out on that expedition. Now, obviously, you are an amputee. How does that work then? Because I've known a few amputees that have done stuff. Now, the end of your stump must be very, very sensitive to cold. I remember watching that documentary, and you had to put stuff on it.
Yeah.
Like, and if you get a knock or a bang or anything on there, that's game changing. How did you manage to keep that functioning all the time? Because I'm sure the camera didn't highlight everything out there.
No, it didn't. And there's a number of good points and questions within there, I feel. So first of all, like you say, the work Prince Harry has done, for us as servicemen and women in all tri-services, is so phenomenal. And what I love about him is he gets so bought into the thing. And I think, obviously, yes, with walking through, that was kind of the start of it, really. I know he had a passion for it, and he had an idea of it, and his interaction with with the young lad on the plane and stuff like that was kind of during a similar time periods and stuff like that. But that was kind of the first ignite, and when he said yes to be an ambassador for the charity, and then being involved, so deeply rooted within Walking with the Wounded, to actually join us on the ice was amazing, and it shows you his commitment. And I think that was really the start of a lot of things that really followed from there. And to be very honest, even the Invictus Games, kind of came from that moment. It's followed. It's a bit of a snowball effect. It started there.
It was 2012, Jaco, wasn't it?
It was 11. Yeah.
2011.
Yeah. So 2011. But wow. But like you say, so there was a number of challenges we faced, and especially myself with one arm. And this is truly where a buddy system, came in. And, and again, as you mentioned, we're all very proud of who we are, what we are, and where we come from. Every single unit within the army have their, the things they are very fond of, traditions, and why you are within the logistical corps, why you are within the Marine Corps, why you are a paratrooper, all that kind of stuff. And that's what makes us so unique as well. And I'll be honest, as a paratrooper, you are brainwashed to the degree that, you are the best, there's no other unit like us. And, you just have to carry on, as a soldier. But what I found within these environments is that I couldn't do everything on my own, and it took a great deal of courage from my side, but also realization that we are a team, and I'm no longer in the military. Yes, the military will always be part of me, and I was representing the military and especially the Parachute Regiment within these cases. But my life has changed, and it's the one thing I'm probably most grateful for what I've done. Like walking to the North Pole and again attempting Everest, because these extreme environments forces you to seek for help, because like you say, Scotty, there's a number of things I found extremely difficult to do that I couldn't do on my own, and I had to turn to a member, another team member, and say, can you help me with a zip? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And what we did as a team, we figured out things that I can do, that I excelled more than others, and things that I couldn't do, that some of the other members took up. And it was great. Like I say, really teamwork on that operation, or that, that expedition, was fundamental. In terms of what I've done in terms of protecting the stump as well, again, we learned a lot through training. We would go somewhere in Norway, and I would basically nearly lose my arm from frostbite, and we're like, whoa, this is bad. How do we mitigate this? Because we haven't thought, like you say, just haven't thought of, circulation within the cold environments, and, kit and equipment adaptation. We were just like folding the kit over, and it wasn't sufficient enough to do that. So we had to figure out ways, like, actually, we need to modify the jackets and the base layers and everything we had. So in the end, what we did is I had a base layer or a number of base layers, and we would sew pockets onto the arm or onto the stump area. And then every morning, I would crack open a foot warmer, or a hand warmer, and let that warm up, and then put it in the pocket. And then I would put one layer on top of that over it, so it really sealed the heat in, and just keeping the bottom of the stump really nice and warm, and the flow of blood through it. So it's stuff like that. We learned the hard way. There was times where I was like, wow, is this a limiting factor for me actually going on the expeditions? But we had to think outside the box and came up with different solutions. So yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that an amazing lesson there as well is, I think Scotty has spoken about this as well. It's asking for help is actually a great strength. There's a lot of pride, I think, that comes along, but actually having the courage to actually go, what, I need a bit of help, is actually so important, to actually go and do that. So Jackie, Jackie, you went and trekked to the North Pole, which is absolutely incredible, with Prince Harry. Which, I mean, did you ever think you'd be doing that when during that 2-month period where you were having that internal battle, to now you're in the North Pole?
No, to answer your question directly, is no, not even in the slightest. I mean, if you walked into my hospital room and go, Jaco, one day you'll trek to the North Pole, you'll run a number of marathons, you'll do all this stuff, and the climbing and the cycling, I would laugh in your face, and I would say, just walk out, just go, because there were so many dark times and uncertain times, and never in a million years have I foreseen myself having done what I've done and doing what I'm doing and planning what I want to do, in terms of, with what happened to me. But I think that's that's the beauty of it. It's just the uncertainty. But you can only, I saw it as a time in my life as well where, you know, you have two options. I can literally let this injury get the best of me, let it ruin my life. And basically, I didn't let the Taliban win because, okay, yes, the Taliban that night did not kill me. They didn't kill me, but they've changed my life. And they probably wanted to ruin my life. So if they achieve that, I might as well be dead. Or option two is actually, you know, you crack on with life, see what it brings, and let's, you know, just kind of roll with the punches. And I only had option two as an option at the end of the day. You know, I can only choose the latter. And it led to everything else that has come from then. But yes, we've gone on to trek the North Pole. It was an amazing experience. You know, some of the most fun moments I have on expedition life comes from the North Pole. It was the first time I've done it. We had Prince Harry with us, which was again such a big bonus. He had to leave us after a week, sadly, and it truly felt like we lost a team member. It was such a sad moment when that helicopter came in to pick him up and fly him away. But we continued on and we reached the North Pole, and the whole aim was to show. And the reason why there was someone like myself with an arm amputee, and Guy as a leg amputee, and Steve with a back injury, and Martin with a gunshot wound and paralyzed arm, is that we wanted to cover a pretty wide range of injuries to show people, especially the wounded community, you know, the armed forces side, but not just them, but, you know, the public as well, that life can and does carry on after injury or a setback or something like that. So we wanted to cover someone that goes, I've got something similar, or I struggle with something, you know, like Jaco or one of the other members. And if they've just done what they've done to the North Pole, oh my word, then at least I can get off my sofa and go to my nearest, you know, I don't know, shop to go and buy milk. You know, if that's a struggle for them, then I can at least take that on, or I can get on a bike, or, you know, better my life in whatever way it might be. So that was the whole point, and we managed to do that. And I think just to stand on top of the North Pole, you know, at first was all about world first and the first guy to do that, and that was so attractive. But once you dig down deeper to the full meaning of why we're actually doing it, it's much greater than world records and, like I say, world first and whatever it might be. It was the true deep meaning about it was much deeper and so much more a reason why we did what we did. And that then obviously we came back to the UK, and it was always meant to be a one-stop expedition, the North Pole, and that was it. I don't think even Walking with the Wounded was it wasn't even a registered charity at the time. It was purely just, it was a tool to raise money to then pump money into other service charities to help the guys. But we came back to the UK and everyone was asking us, like, well done, what's next? So that's how Everest got born, really. So it was like a bit of a shock to the system, but that's how we came up with Everest. And I was never really meant to be part of the Everest team because I've just done the North Pole. And I had a good sit down with the founders of the charity, with Ed Parker. And he's like, you know, he calls me Yarpy, and he's like, Yarpy, obviously we've told your story. And again, I didn't know it. It's not until the documentary came out that I was actually a bit of a focus point. You know, my whole story and everything like that, I didn't even know that they were doing that or going to do that. But I was a little bit of a focus point in the documentary. And it's like, you know, it was amazing. And we want to tell more stories like yours with other individuals. So I'm happy for you to be along, because he's saying, I want to use you as a mentor on Everest, or the whole process all the way up to Everest. So you can tell the other guys, and they can, you know, you come with a bit of experience. You've seen how life-changing this is and how you can help other people. And I agreed immediately because that was amazing. And I knew I wasn't going to go to Everest until the final team gets selected, but I will be along the way. And like I say, so I joined all the training and all the selection criteria and all that kind of stuff. And it's not until we went on what would have been my final expedition with Walking with the Wounded, we went to Manaslu, which is the 8th highest mountain in the world, to get altitude. We went with Russell Bryce, which is a very famous climber, and he runs extremely well-organized expeditions and stuff like that. And his criteria was that whoever goes, they need to have high altitude exposure. So we went to get some exposure to high altitude, because again, he said, you could be the fittest guy in the world, but once you get to a certain level of altitude, your body can just collapse and fail, or not work with you.
Right. What's the actual term for the lungs? Is it edema? Something? Is it that? What you call it? The oxygen you get
yes. Is it cerebral edema?
Something like that, where you just can't get enough.
Something edema. Yeah, I know what you mean.
That over a certain height, don't they?
Yeah,
unbelievable.
So, and that's exactly what it is. What he wanted to see. So I knew I was never going to be part of the final group, but then we went to this high altitude environment, and out of the 10 potential candidates to make the team of 4, only 6 of them summited, and I was one of them. And I was constantly on the strip, one of the first guys, myself and another guy called Francis Atkinson, who was a doctor who got shot through the arm. We were the ones that actually dealt well with the altitude and got to the camps for, not that it was ever a race and stuff, it was just like we got to the next point in the best condition. We were still suffering, we're still like dogs, coughing and throwing up, but it took the other guys much longer and a long time to actually settle then up into a higher altitude. And anyway, we summited, we came back down, and I knew that was, kind of my final kind of bit towards Everest, or, my job done. And it's not until I was actually in New York running the New York Marathon when...
of course, as you do.
Just throw someone else in there, Jaco.
So right before I was doing that, I was doing a marathon, it's pretty easy.
Just coming back from my high altitude training camp.
Yeah, of course. I thought... Or as Scotty calls a Wednesday,
Yeah, there you go. So I came back from my Wednesday training camp, and then anyway, I found myself in New York ready to run, and then Ed calls me, and he's like, "Yapi, I've got some confusing news for you, but we had a good sit down with the board and the selection committee and everyone else, but it's like obviously it's important that we want to obviously put someone on Everest, and it's actually important to actually potentially get someone up. It's like it might not be some of the other guys, but it could potentially be you. So guess what? You're on the team." So it was amazing. So it was a great, great surprise and stuff like that. And I was very humbled by that. And then, like I say, we went to Everest, and again, most significant experience. It was so lovely to fall into that culture, the Sherpa life. As you start climbing from the bottom of the valley, you see the changes within, the valley floor from very green, lush, and it slowly starts getting more bare and brown, and then into grey, and then later on it's rock and snow, and that's it. And then eventually you reach base camp, and we then go into a whole acclimatization phase of going high up the mountain to then come back down. So you train your body to get used to the altitude by going up, spend some time at a very high altitude to then come down, and that's when it recovers. It forms more red blood cells, and then it carries oxygen better. So the next time you do it, you actually find that very same route a lot easier, and then you keep pushing your body that way. And we went for a summit window appeared, and we made the first push for a summit, which was amazing. But we reached Camp 2, and very soon the weather, that's the one thing, it's nature, weather is weather, and it turned very quickly. And we were actually stuck at Camp 2 for a number of days, and making attempts as well. We actually attempted to get to Camp 3, and again, halfway up had to turn around because of very high winds and rockfall and all kinds of stuff. And we keep seeing injuries from other teams that have gone higher up the mountain, and them returning back absolutely battered. And we made a decision, actually, let's go back to base camp. Let's wait for better weather window. Let's wait for better weather to come in, and we'll make a second attempt. Because at base camp, it's a really good setup, good food. Again, we can just rest much better. And it's once at base camp that Russell Bryce, our expedition leader, just eventually called us in the next day after arriving back and just said, "You know what, guys, this is not to be." We were facing avalanches all the time. We're facing extremely different temperatures than he's ever seen before, and weather systems, and even the Sherpas wasn't happy with us being there or trying to get to the top. So he made a call, and it was devastating. It was literally at that stage we were 10 weeks away, from our family and our loved ones and everyone. And now we got to go back and say that we failed. We didn't make it. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but it's we still only. It took a few days to settle in. We slowly made our way down the mountain and got flown out by helicopter further down in the valley. And it's literally as we arrived, I think it was about 3 days after we cancelled. And then 3 or 4 days later, another team went up to try and go up to the summit. Quite a few teams. But then anyway, a big avalanche came and killed 11 climbers. And it was like...
Yeah.
We were sitting in Kathmandu at that stage in a very nice hotel, and you're like, wow, that could have been us. And it sunk in immediately that, we were really disappointed and peed off about not going to the top, and other units and organizations staying. It was literally us going down, and everyone else was going to stay and wait it out. And suddenly you realize that, we made the right decision here. So sadly, that was the truth. And we came back to the UK with a bit of a better heart, knowing that, we can always go again. But it was a bit of a pill to swallow.
I mean, it sounds like the right call. I mean, Everest claims lives every single year. So it definitely feels like the right call to make. And even just to get up to Camp 2, is way more than a lot of people have done. So
yeah,
Scotty.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's Jaco. Just listening to you there. Obviously, I knew a little bit of your backstory before you started talking. I think you're such a great inspiration for many people who's going to be listening to this, not just as an amputee, but just someone in life in general. As I've said in this. Forgive us time many a times, none of us ever want a handout. We just want a hand up.
Yeah.
And have that initial hand up is making that difference to putting one step in front of the other. And what you've proven, again, just listening to you, and Alex will back me up on this, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. The stuff that you've achieved, and I'm no doubt that there will be other crazy feats out there that you'll be doing, and hopefully we'll get onto that in a little bit later. But mate, absolutely blown me away by listening to it. And I'm sure people will be sitting at home going, let me tell you something, I can get my trainers back on. And I'm not walking to Everest, but I'm walking to the shop. But that's a start. Yeah. That's a start. And thanks
I think
for your story.
I think just on that point, and it's exactly that, Scotty, that I would hope that the listeners or anyone else can take from this is that not everyone needs to challenge himself in the way that I do. Yes, I go and do the extreme stuff from North Pole challenges and climbing and all that kind of stuff. A challenge for someone listening, like I mentioned earlier, could really just be having the confidence to actually walk out their front door and to the corner shop to do something. Yes. And if that is your challenge, that is your Everest. That is for me, Everest significance. For you, the significance of to go to that corner shop and buy some milk, walking on your prosthetic legs, or using your wheelchair, whatever the situation might be, that is your Everest. And everyone's Everest is different. And that's the one thing I really want to point out. We all really face different challenges on a daily basis in our life, in very many ways and forms, and they are as significant as like I say, the big expeditions. This because for so majority of the people out there to try and go and climb Everest or attempt Everest, it's out of their reach. It's out of their, they don't even think of, they do see a very small group of people on a different pedestal to go and try and do that. But that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to put ourselves on a different pedestal. It's just that every day we're going to face challenges, and your challenges is as significant as Everest. And whatever that is, you need to do, you need to know that you can do it. And I think I really love Everest. Yes, the disappointment of not getting there to the top has actually, I've learned more from that than actually probably what I would have if we did make to the top. Because I really had to look back on myself going, because I mentioned earlier, I said, oh, we're going back, facing our friends and family, saying that we failed. You know, have we really failed? Let's look at this. You know, have we really failed? No, we didn't make it to the top. You know, that's a given. But Alex, you asked me earlier on about that. You know, being on my hospital bed, and in that 2 months, would I have ever considered? You know, have I ever seen myself doing this stuff? No. And that is why Everest wasn't a failure, because if you take from where I came, from barely being able to walk, to, you know, considering or wishing I was dead and rather not alive, to attempt Everest.
Yeah.
That in itself, the pure fact that we tried something so unbelievably out there, that in itself is success. That in itself is, you know, we won because we've put ourselves out there. And I think it's also important, the point that I want to make is that we're not going to succeed in everything in our daily lives. Like I said to you, I've lost so many races. I've lost, you know, in bike riding. I have made so many mistakes along the way. I have, again, failed with other expeditions and other attempts on unbelievable things. But it's through those failures that I actually learn a lot more about myself, that then sets me up to then become successful in other parts of my life. Yeah. And I think if people see that and they can use those, gosh, we keep calling them failures, but maybe just not succeeding, then as a better way of, or as a tool to then succeed in something else, then that's a great way to look at life.
Yeah. Absolutely mind-blowing. This, I mean, an outrageous mindset, which I think is just, you know, is just so. I could see Scotty there.
One of the things we do in here, Jaco, is rapid-fire questions for a minute.
Okay.
So that the listeners, this is more important than Everest.
I think so. Yeah. more nerve-wracking than Everest.
The questions aren't that bad, and you know, the toughest one I'm probably going to say is, "What's your name?" And you'll probably get that one right, because you're a pilot and you write with crayons. But other than that, we'll give it a go. If Alex, can you give me a minute on the wee clock there for Jack?
So 3, 2, 1.
Okay then. Texting or talking?
Texting.
Texting. Favorite day of the week?
Friday.
Briefs or boxers?
Boxers.
Last song you downloaded?
Oh, it's an Afrikaans song. You would know. It's Afrikaans song treffers.
Your favorite holiday?
Anywhere around the world where it's warm, but most likely Mallorca.
Mallorca. How long does it take you to get ready?
Oh, I'm about 20 minutes.
Yeah. 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes. Yeah.
15 minutes of the 20 minutes is in the shower, and then I literally like rapid fire through the rest of it. So.
Right. Visibility or super strength?
Super strength.
And if I can finish, this one will test you because Paralympian, name the colours of the 5 interchanging rings on the Olympics.
Oh, wow. Obviously, there's red, blue, green, yellow, black.
Oh, he's only one, nailed it.
Yes. Oh, I had to think of that one.
Yeah. That wasn't that hard, was it?
Yeah.
No, it's good. Good questions. Good questions.
And my question's just coming up now. It's just more about your time in the military, Jaco. If you could just go and tell me, or tell the listeners, your favourite moment in the military.
Wow, military. Favourite moment in the military. That is a very hard question because I have so many that stands out and stuff like that. I would say, especially, I would say the day I become a paratrooper. So that part of parade and stuff like that. And then oh, then there's many to follow that on operations and tours and stuff like that. But I would say, especially that moment when you slide, because we have a green backing. So there's a point during basic training where you get your maroon beret and you get your cap badge, but we put like a green backing behind the cap badge, which indicates that you're still in training. You're not a qualified paratrooper yet. And then that moment you take that green backing out, and the staff, the captain, hands you your maroon beret and you put it on. That's truly a significant moment. So yeah, you've joined a very elite unit. So yeah, that's most likely the one that stands out.
That's answered a good few questions actually. So I'm going to have to go and move on a little bit to what is your next adventure then? Because you've done so much already. You're part of the Team GB cycling team. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. So that is the next adventure. So obviously, I was very inspired by London. At the London Paralympics and Olympics that we hosted in 2012, and I lived in London at the time, and then having the opportunity to go and watch some of the events and stuff, and just seeing that interaction between the crowd and seeing the very, very high level of performance of the athletes, especially on the Paralympic side, with so many disabilities, and again, there where people just go, what, this will not define me. Yeah. And they just cracked on with sports that you just think, someone without two arms can't do. And they just go, well, I can do it. And anyway, that's where kind of my dream of becoming a Paralympian started. And obviously I've tried over the last 8 years. I've had a bit towards Rio, where obviously we've been cycling. Sadly, didn't make it to the final team that went on to the Paralympic Games in Rio in 2016. I took a bit of a break from British cycling and kind of started training myself, and again went on a few other expeditions and challenges and stuff just to mix it up a bit. But the one thing I never stopped cycling, and I figured out ways during the last 4 years of what works for me. And basically, to cut a very long story short, is I got really good results over the last couple of years. And the back end of I need to think where we are now, because obviously this is a postponement. So basically, January 2020, I got great results, and they said that, British Cycling, I always had a good relationship with them. And they said, well, you know what, Jaco, your chances of actually getting to Tokyo is very good. So at this stage, I was an independent rider. I was looking after myself. I was funding it myself, my own bikes and equipment, blah, 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 nutrition, coaching. And I looked, well, if that is the case, how can I take some of the pressures off me? That is, because I obviously had to find work and sponsorship and all that kind of stuff to help me support my hobby at that stage. So stepping back onto the team was a sensible thing to do. And I thought, it is only for 8 months at that stage, because it was going to be January, get back on the team, and then the Paralympics in August. So that's all I want to do, become a Paralympian and go win a medal and then move on with my life. Obviously, that's now been extended a slightly longer due to the postponement of the games. But I love it. I'm still on the team. I'm training harder than ever before. I'm focused more than ever before. The postponement have given us time to look into smaller aspects of my training and where we can improve. We know what works. We know what doesn't work. So my next challenge, to answer your question, is it's the Paralympic Games in August this year, if it goes ahead.
I'm hoping. I'm sure it will go ahead. I'm hopeful.
I'm sure it will. I'm confident it will. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and there's a lot of other sports that is behind closed doors, and they see it work. And I think rigorous testing and forming strict bubbles, I think I can see us going there, and maybe just without crowds. And it will be a different experience than what we ever thought it might be. But again, it will be a unique experience, the first time ever, maybe without crowds or stuff like that. But again, maybe the most viewed ever, because if all those people are going to watch on television, then it might be even the most viewed ever before. So, yeah.
That would just be absolutely incredible. That would be incredible. As a family charity as well, we ask all our guests to come on this. We just want to know, what does family mean to you?
Oh, family is such an important thing. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have someone like my fiance, like Catherine, in my life. We haven't got kids or anything like that yet, but just someone to bounce ideas off, to share feelings, to share emotions. Because I do take on a lot in my life, and it's not always easy or straightforward going, and to have that support there is phenomenal. And then again, similar with my sister, having gone through so much of my life, especially the back end of from injury onwards, again, just those support pillars is so important. And then your closer family, your mom and dad and stuff like that as well, just it's unbelievable how the one thing I found out from the injury is just obviously that ripple effect it has throughout, and then over the years how that really could be used as a new way to connect and to really utilize each other as family.
Yeah, that was just that's incredible. That's a great answer as well. Probably one of the best answers we've had so far.
There you go.
Absolutely. I think today's podcast has been absolutely fantastic. As I said, you're a true inspiration to a lot of people, and I think you will continue to help a lot of people along the way. So, on that there, Jaco, how can people get in touch with Jaco Van Gass if they want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, of course, always open to that. Obviously, we're on most of the social media platforms, so Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So again, just at Jaco Van Gass. Pretty easy to remember, and obviously Facebook is just purely. I've got two pages. I've got a personal and an athlete page there, so Jaco Van Gass Athlete or Jaco Van Gass, and then I've got my own website as well that people can go and visit to keep up with date with some of the things I'm doing, some of the things I have done before. There's a few blogs on there. There's a few just general information about myself. So yes, and that's jacovangass.com. So yeah, very happy to connect with people in whichever sense they feel more comfortable with.
Absolutely, and we wish you all the very best for the Paralympics, mate. And we will all be here at Give Us Time. We'll all be rooting for you, and we'll all be shouting for you. And if there's no crowds there, you'll still probably hear me roaring in the background. Yeah, that's a given. Amazing podcast.
No, fantastic. Yeah. Well, Jaco, thank you so much for going and joining us today. This has been one of the most inspirational podcasts we've done. Make sure everyone to subscribe and follow Jaco, because I think he's a truly inspirational guy, and I think everyone can learn a lot from his story. Make sure to follow us on Spotify as well, so you don't miss out on our next episode, where we'll be interviewing my Special Forces soldier and television presenter Ken Hames. So make sure to like, follow and subscribe, and thank you all very much for listening. All right, thank you.
Thank you.